Sorry.
Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this week's Tiger Talk. So my name is Lindsay Bray. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Parent and Family Services here at the University of Memphis. And today we have Vanessa Brocks with us, who is an academic counselor too, who works in the Academic Counseling Center. And she's here to talk a little bit about how you can help your student prepare and get ready for spring 2021. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So to get us started, let's start out. What it would be the first step that a student really needs to do to get ready to prepare for spring 2021?
They need to get advised. What students don't understand is they must meet or at least have contact with their academic advisor prior to registration. So what you want their student to do is go ahead and contact their advisor. Many advisors have already sent out campaigns through what we call Navigate. So the students should be looking for those campaigns through their University of Memphis email address. Some students, some advisors, now primarily the Academic Counseling Center, we send campaigns, but if I'm speaking for people all over the campus, some advisors send emails. So what a student wants to do is meet with their advisor first so that they can be cleared and discuss the classes that they plan to take in spring 2021.
Okay. And so to access Navigate, that would be through their My Memphis portal?
Yes, it would be through their My Memphis portal. But before that, if they go to the email in which their advisor sent out, the link is in the email. So for many students, if they would just read their email and go that route, it would be easier. So then they would just go to their University of Memphis email account.
Yes, encourage your student to read their email. It's always a number one important point to that. Go to class and read your email. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit about what the dates and deadlines are to register for classes? So once they're advised and they see you as part of getting ready for spring, what are those dates and deadlines for this spring?
So registration opens on November 9th. That is a Monday, but that is not for everyone. So sometimes students freak out and say, I have to register. November 9th is open for our students who are registered with DRS, veterans, and honor students, and athletes, of course. So those students get to register first. Then the next day, which is November 10th, that is for seniors. November 11th is for juniors. November 10th is for sophomores. And the very next Monday, November 16th, is for freshmen. Registration opens at 8 a.m. So they don't need to stay up to 12 for it to open. It opens at 8 a.m. But when it opens, it opens. So it's a free-for-all. So you're at some schools, they do like, well, you are at 8:10, and we don't do that. It's a free-for-all. Be very patient because when everybody's on the system, it's a little slow. So what students need to just be patient, and it would really help if they've already kind of picked out the classes they wanted prior to registration. So then when they get onto the registration system, they're not just, they kind of have a direction on which way to go.
And during their advising appointment, they can do that a little bit with their advisor.
Right. The advisor will help them stay on path. Like, okay, like if a student came to see me, a freshman, I would say, you need social sciences. You have to have 2 for graduation purposes through general education. And if it was a student who had an opportunity to be open to them, I would say, give me a first choice and a second choice. Because let's say you really want to take psychology, but at the time of the psychology class, it interferes with the class that you need to have for your major. So I always ask students for options. But also what that could also mean, just because you wanted psychology, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:20, there could be another section at 9:40 on Tuesday, Thursday. So be open to those things as well. So just be kind of open. A lot of times students think when they come to be advised, that's set, like, okay, or when they use some other systems on campus that we have, that's set. Nothing is set until you literally register for those classes during registration. And sometimes that's why I asked for alternates. You may have to change your schedule a little bit for it to make sense for your life. So I have students who don't like 8 o'clock classes, don't sign up for them if you can. Some students have to work, they have to pick up their little brother. So making sure that whatever classes students choose, it works for their life schedule, their learning schedule, as well as, what they need for their majors.
And that's also a really great point as to why they need to register early and why there's so many students on the system at that point too.
Well, see, the thing is, now I will say this, you can still register after your registration date. I think a lot of people think if I do not register on my registration date, then I can't get classes. No, once registration opens, it stays open until like classes start into January. But the longer you wait, the availability start to shrink. Or the prime times, because many students, don't want to take 8 o'clock classes or take late in the afternoon classes. So those prime times are gone. So then students who are late registering have to take what's left. We don't do waitlisting. So some students are like, if a class is closed, I want to be waitlisted. We don't actually do that. So it's kind of like I have to tell a student, hey, you have to just find another section or choose to take that class another time. So I can't guarantee, even if you register on time, you're going to get the exact schedule that you want. Okay, nothing is guaranteed, because maybe the teacher was going to teach that is not teaching it, or a section got closed, or something happened. But you will have a better shot of getting the schedule you want if you register on time. And the best way to do that is to get advised, because you can't register without being advised by your advisor, because we have to clear what is called your alternate PN.
And so when a student is getting ready to be advised, obviously they need to come with a little bit of a plan of action that they've kind of thought about. But what else should they bring with them for you to help them?
So this is what I tell students a lot of times. Most advising appointments are about 30 minutes. And some of them are a little short depending on what college you're with. But with Academic Counseling Center, you get 30 minutes if you're a current student. So a lot of times at the beginning of the day will send out the general education worksheet, so students can kind of pick, what they want. But they can also go to their My Memphis account and click on their student page, and then look under My Enrollment, I believe, and they can click on their UM degree. That is their degree plan. So they can click on that, and it will show them what they have completed, what they haven't completed, what they still need. So they can go through and say, oh, I still need to take oral communication, which is public speaking, or I still need another natural science. If they look at that, that gives them an idea. Because one of the first things students want to know is, when am I going to graduate? Well, if you still have a lot of blank classes, then it's not going to be next semester. So if they can use that, and that also gives them an idea of what classes they need. I always tell my students, listen, I am your advisor. I need to know, and because I'm a general advisor, I need to know all the majors, but you just need to know that one major, which is yours. So if you're a psych major, you need to know what is needed for a psych major. If you are a accounting major, you need to know what's needed for an accounting major. So if you come in familiar with the classes you need, and even come in with like a list of classes, even if the classes may be out of order, like you have to have one class before the other, that lets me know that you're vested in your education. So then it won't take us long to pick out classes. So once we pick out your classes for the next semester, we can use that time to talk about how you're doing in your current classes. Are you getting involved on campus with co-curricular activities? Even though I know people are wondering, even though we're not all on campus, they are still having meetings with co-curricular with registered student organizations through Zoom and other things. So students can still get involved on campus. Okay, let's talk about, okay, do you have any idea what major you don't want? Maybe you're thinking about changing your major. Maybe you're thinking, so these are things I can talk about if we kind of have your classes set aside. We could talk about maybe I've already started talking to my students about summer 2021, because some students may say, well, I maybe want to study abroad. That could be an opportunity, especially with what's going on now. A lot of people are kind of still nervous, but that may have changed for the summer. Maybe they want to talk about an internship, or I can talk about, so many freshmen aren't allowed to do internships, or at least organized ones, but they can still volunteer. They can still go and seek out people who could be their mentor in that field. So these are things we could talk about if I'm not spending my whole time saying, okay, out of the social sciences, you want psych, sociology, econ, when you've already kind of said, I kind of have an idea. So that opens up the meeting for us to talk about other things and some other experiences, or even grad school, or some things I can help you with to get you thinking about just beyond the next semester.
That's great to know that it's just more than classes. And I think our parents really, really appreciate that little extra help that their students can get. So so they've had their advising appointments, and they feel comfortable in the classes that you have talked about and moving forward. Is there a way for them to kind of have a plan of action or build out their schedule prior to actually registering, so that they're really, really ready to go when their registration spot opens up?
We have something called schedule. I can't even get it out. Schedule Builder. Now, it has been brought to my attention that as of the end of December, it will no longer be available. But at this point, students can literally go through and pick out certain classes. However, you have to set the criteria well, meaning you don't want to check you want all locations, because if you do, it's going to pull classes from Lambeth, it's going to pull classes from the Carterville Center, the Milligan Center. So students who know they primarily want their classes to be on main campus need to choose that. If a student knows they don't want any web classes, they need to unselect all classes. So it's about making sure that, because if you don't, it'll pull everything. So sometimes that's an issue, because I've had students register for classes in Lambeth, and they're like, how do I get to Lambeth? And we're like, oh my God, you're never going to get there in 15 minutes. So I think when they set that up, students have to go in knowing, if you don't want classes before 8 o'clock, you can click no early classes or no late classes. So before, they need to set the settings on it, so that it pulls back classes that the student can actually use, and they're not being offered classes that they really don't want. And that's the thing, making sure the location, the type of class, when you want the classes, so you're not getting 8 o'clocks or late evening classes, or if you don't want web classes or those types of classes. So you have to kind of set it. But once you get that set, it can help you a lot to just pick different, and gives you options of helping you pick out English classes and history classes and things like that.
That's great. And I think that's a really great point too, to be very cognizant of the location, since we do have multiple campuses that are some of which are not very close to our own campus. So for parents out there who are helping their student looking through classes, anything, if it says Lambeth or obviously Collierville or Millington, are there any others I'm missing? Those are the three main ones that would be not here on the main campus here in Memphis for our students.
And important for students who know if they totally want web classes, then they need to look for those. But knowing if you don't want any web classes, so that that's not being offered to you in the mix, because sometimes you get in a hurry, like, oh, that's a class, but not realizing it may not be taught the method or the way that you want it to be taught. So.
And so speaking of web classes, so the university has not made an official announcement about our spring 2021, but our classes are available for students to already look at right now. Can you talk a little bit about what those classes are, what the schedule is looking like right now so students can have a sense of when they're choosing their classes?
It looks like the university is offering classes in various different ways. They will offer remote classes. They will offer some face-to-face, and they will offer web. So what I'm telling students now, if you click that you want a face-to-face class, and what it's not going to say face-to-face, it's going to actually give a building and a room number. So if it says Patterson 301, you need to be prepared that that class is going to meet face-to-face Patterson 301 on the first day of class. So if you know that maybe something that you maybe are not comfortable with, you may want to schedule yourself in remote classes. Now, remote classes are the ones that are supposed to meet via Zoom, so that you're meeting at the same time, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9-10, but you're meeting over Zoom. Whereas online or web classes are traditionally like they are asynchronous, where you just log on whenever you want to and then do the work within a period of time. Like the teacher may give you 2 weeks to finish a module and then you go to the next. So you log on when you want to. But remote is supposed to be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:20. If you're supposed to meet English, you're going to be there. So we have a lot of students, which I've seen this semester, who were like, well, I have to work. Well, whoa. When you signed up for the class, you said you were going to be available Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:20. So whatever you sign up for, if it has a time connected with it or associated with it, you need to make sure that your schedule or your child's schedule is accommodating for that. So that needs to be something that you as a family or the student decides prior to registration, and you still have some time for that and to be able to do that. Again, some classes, some departments are making their own choices. So the student may not have a choice in how they're going to take the class, if it's going to be remote or whatever, or face-to-face, because that's just how they're offering it. And sometimes that is students may have an option of deciding to not take that class that semester or take it another semester when they're more comfortable or coming on campus. But some majors, it's just not a choice. If you're looking at a lot of STEM majors or like things like that, science, technology, engineering, and math, or education, where the classes have to go in a certain order for your child to stay on track. So that's something you guys may want to think about. If it says you have to come to class for chemistry, but you need chemistry to get to the next science, that's going to be a big thing. So I think, again, I've been telling students to really make a decision now with their parents about how they may want to come to school. And as like you said, the university hasn't made any announcements, but go, make a plan based on what you know. And then if you have to adjust it later, that's easier, but that's the situation.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think you can sit down and make a decision and see what is available to whatever works for your students' learning style and what they feel comfortable with at this point. This is a unique opportunity where there's a lot of different options at this point. So yeah, we're all going to look on the bright side of it and think of it as taking advantage of a unique opportunity.
Well, I mean, and it has worked for some people, being able to stay at home and help out with everything that's going on, help out with brothers and sisters who may be in class as well. So I know people like, but a lot of my students have really, it's been working out for them and been able to help out at home. So we don't want to say everything is negative, but if that's something that you're still having to do, then think about that. That's what I'm saying. Like, the students have to make the decision for their own lives and what is, best for them and their families and what's going on. And don't let somebody else make them feel bad because they had to do something a certain way. I mean, right now we're all just trying to keep our heads above water and go with the flow and keep pushing forward. So anybody, any student who has to do what they have to do, I'm totally supportive, even if that means, and I'll say this, some students may only need to go part-time, because sometimes that's what they need with their lifestyle. And I mean, I'd rather you progress taking 3 classes and then progressing than not take any, or, have to sit some time out. So that's what I tell students all the time. We have to work in it as an advisor. I talk to my students individually. What do you need as a person compared to what your friends are needing? Because you may have something going on in your life, or they may have something going on in their life that, that doesn't affect other people. They may have to work. So let's keep you progressing. And that's what I always say. Most advisors, and I know the Academic Counseling Center, but most advisors are trying to help our students progress, but also making sure they're not overwhelmed or whatever. So we really try to connect. So if that's one thing I can tell parents, have your students tell us what's going on. If a student has to now work full time because of COVID issues, we totally get it. But as an advisor, I may then decide or maybe say, hey, let's look at something from a different point of view. Let's slow this down. Let's take less classes. But it's like, if you don't tell us what's going on, we're just going to, you know, go the route, but we can make adjustments many times. So I think that having your child have an open um, rela- uh, relationship or an open conversation with their advisor about their needs and their wants is great. I think a lot of times, especially when we're dealing with our freshmen and sophomores, they feel like we're the authority and they don't have a say in what classes they take. And I want students to understand you do have a say. Now, if we say something you don't like, please be respectful and saying, I disagree with that. But this is really your education. So we're here to help you. So if you need to only take 12 hours, don't make somebody feel like you have to take more than that. There can be adjustments made. So I always want students to know, and parents, that your child has a say. So so even if they don't feel comfortable with taking the amount of hours the advisor has suggested, and some students aren't as vocal as somebody like me or some students, but I think they really need to know to be empowered and empower your child to really feel comfortable with speaking up about what is best for them and whatever's, because we don't want to overwhelm them, because that's not something we want to do as well.
I think that's perfect. And two, we just want to see a student succeed. At the end of the day, that is all we want to do. And we want to see them succeed and be successful and graduate just as much as our parents do. And so if that means that they need to take a few less hours, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. And I think too, you make a great point about being an advocate for yourself. And I think too, if a student's unsure, and if there are a lot of students out there who are a little afraid to ask for help, but that's all that you need. Like, if you don't know what you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so just ask for that help and know that the advisor is there to help. They are not there to dictate what classes. They just want to make sure that you're progressing where you need to go, yes, as opposed to wasting your time potentially with, some other classes that you might not need. They may fit your interests, but you want to get to a degree at the end of the day, and we want to see that too.
Yes. And I know this may be, but parents, I know this is hard. It's okay for your child to change their major or not know what they want to do a little bit right now. And I mean, because I just did a focus interview. I'm actually also the coordinator of the Tiger Learning Communities program. And I did a focus interview, and some of the students, well, I kind of changed my major. Is that okay? It's perfectly okay. Many of our students change their majors. It's okay to be undecided or know that you want something in social science, but not know specifically which major. Now, some majors do require that you kind of know a little bit more, but that's okay. I think a lot of times parents, and I know as parents, you want your child to graduate and you want them to be successful and you want them to be able to take care of themselves and to live a, successful life. But at the same time, sometimes that can be very pressuring, because we have some students who have vast interests and they can do a lot of things. And so we want them to feel comfortable. And sometimes it's just, letting a student take one class and go, "Ooh, I really enjoyed that." As an advisor, I do make sure I tell students, now, if you take this class, if you decide on this major, it may not, work into that major, and that's fine. But I think us wanting our students to, because I'm telling you, I was a business major. I work in education now. You see those totally different things. And that's okay, because I think we still think our students, we still kind of live in some ways that people stay in the same job, and people are changing jobs so much more with the global society that we live in. And I understand as parents, that sounds fine and good. You don't just want to pay for your kids for 7 years in college. But I think it's okay to encourage your child to, even if that's not even in class, encourage them to get involved on campus. Because maybe if they find something they like on campus, a registered student organization, that can help them change your major or help them solidify what they want. So the college process isn't just about graduating, but if you've gone to college or heard about college, it's about fostering those relationships with your instructors, the people who are going to write your letters of recommendation for grad school, law school, medical school, or even for jobs, but also meeting other students with similar interests or in your major who will be your colleagues in the future. So it's a bigger thing than just, we want you to graduate, don't get me wrong, but we want you to graduate and be able to be successful in the world. And that's not just getting the grades. It's being involved on campus. It's getting to know other people, but it's all about, us growing as people. Hopefully college will teach your child to live in this diverse world that we're living in, and to be able to work with people from all different aspects of the world, and different backgrounds. And so to be able to do that, sometimes they have to take certain classes. I mean, it's just being open to the experience. Again, I know parents are like, what are you talking about? Look, I'm trying to get my kid out of here. But at the end of the day, you want them to be well-rounded so that when they go out into the world, they'll be able to get a job or get into grad school and be successful and not be thinking, well, I think I missed out on something. So sorry. That's my opinion on that.
No, I think that's great because I think that, a major doesn't have to equal
your job,
a certain type of job.
career.
A major can open up a lot of different doors. I know English majors sometimes get a bad rap sometimes, or theater majors or something like that. But I know a lot of successful students who have majored in both of those and go on to have fabulous careers later on in life. I'm a poli-sci major myself. So it is possible out there, and it's all about kind of finding what works for you and developing yourself as a whole person really in college. So that you can go out into the world and make a difference in what you decide to do. So going back to the advising appointment and the way an advisor can help. So sometimes our students have a hold on their account to keep them from registering. Is that something an advisor could let them know about or direct them to the right place? Or how would they go about clearing those holds if they've got one other than the PIN that has to do with registering?
So right now, I know that the Office of Admissions has sent out their holds. So if we have not received your child's final high school transcript, those holds have gone out. Also with the Office of, the University and Student Business Office, I think that hold says accounts receivable. Now, if you're on a payment plan, there are two types of holds for that. If you're on a payment plan and you're making your payment plan on time, making your payments on time, you will see what is called a transcript hold. So what that means is the student can't see their grades, but they can still register. But I think the admissions hold, or if you your child has gotten a parking ticket or something, then that's going to be a registration hold, which means you cannot register. So what I've been saying to my students as I've gone on is listen, I've looked to see if they've had a hold or shown them how to check if they have a hold, and so they need to get that covered. So I'm saying to parents, because I had a student who said to me the other day, my high school counselor is no longer at my high school. So a lot of times you can't go back to the high school to get your child's final transcript. You may have to go to the Board of Education in your district, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. So that will keep your child from registering. So and I'm going to be honest with you, parents. If your child tells you they have one of these holds, I'm going to ask you to maybe take charge of that, because sometimes our students, they'll call a number, nobody answered. I emailed somebody, they didn't answer, but this is literally keeping them from registering for their classes, which again, we've already discussed, can keep them from getting the times that they want, or the ideal way that they learn, like if they learn better in the afternoon. So if ask your child if they have one of these, and maybe for you to kind of step forward and make a phone call to get that sent. Because until that hold is cleared, they will not be able to register, especially that admissions hold, because that's not something that you can go and make a payment online and they'll clear that within a couple of hours. But when we're waiting on something that another department or another school or another office is in charge of, and you have no control over them, and neither do we, that can prolong some things. And especially now that COVID is hitting, I know a lot of people aren't in their offices and stuff at school. So I'm asking that people really take charge of that as parents, because again, a registration hold means they can't register. So if your child's supposed to register on November 16th, they can't register. They're just sitting there. Whereas if it's like I said, a hold through our university because of payment of something, you can go online and make that payment, and with a few hours or maybe the next day they can register. So please, as parents, if you see something that is an admissions hold, or ask your child about it, and it's their final transcript, please get on top of that like yesterday, because they still have to mail it. You can't bring it into us. It's an official transcript. So we don't want your child to get pushed back because of something that they didn't have control over.
Yeah, that's a great point too. That this is a great time to go ahead and go in, check your account. If you and your student are home together, they can always log in front of you, and you can look around too and see if there is something that is a hold. And it's pretty obvious on there too, the holds. that are part of there.
Now, this is for me. Now, I send follow-up emails to my students, especially now that we're doing everything through Zoom, and it has on there how they can look to see if they have a hold. But I know for sure that admissions has sent out emails saying, "Hi, we haven't received your final transcript." Of course, it's going to their University of Memphis email address. So that may be something. And I want you to know this. Sometimes emails go to like the focus one. It's like two parts of our email. One says focus, and I can't remember what the other one is. And it's not, it says other. Check those because that may have been where it's gone. So you want to, and your child, or it's not coming from, let's say, a teacher, so your student doesn't really read it. Oh, that's not from my English teacher. That's not from my math teacher. And it's just sitting there, but we have informed you. So maybe if you know your child is not as detail oriented as they need to be, maybe ask them to log in and kind of look through those things to see it has financial aid or has one of the departments on campus sent them something that they need to read to have them act upon so that they can progress.
So in case a student, say they took a class maybe this semester and they don't get the grade that they want, is it possible to retake a class for a better grade?
Okay, so let me explain our repeat policy. Let's say, I'm going to use an example. Jimmy did not do well in English 1010. In the spring, Jimmy can repeat English 1010, and the grade that he gets in English 1010 in the spring semester, the second grade, will replace the first grade in his University of Memphis GPA. That first grade will always show on the transcript. A lot of times people think it goes away off the transcript. It doesn't. On the transcript, it will have a little E that says excluded, and then the new grade will be included. Now listen, the second grade counts whether it's better or worse. Okay, so let me give you an example. To graduate from the University of Memphis, you have to have a C- or higher in English 1010. Okay, so let's say Jimmy makes a D. Well, he needs to repeat it because, of course, he can't graduate with a D. But if he takes it the second time and he receives and earns an F, the F now is included in his transcript, and the D is gone. So he still needs to repeat it because he failed it, but at least a D was better than the F. So I think a lot of times people think it's the better of the two grades. No, it's the second grade. So I always ask my students, if you have to repeat, do you think you're going to be better? So let's say a student doesn't do well in multiple classes, like they had 5 classes and they didn't do well in 3 of them. Okay. So first thing I want to know is talk about, do we need to maybe rethink the major that you've decided? Okay. But let's say maybe for spring, we don't need to retake all 3 of those. Maybe one of those courses was very difficult, or you just didn't have interest in modern political thought, and it may not work for you to take it now. We may need to just, hey, let's leave that alone and get your class that you're more interested in, that you'll do well. So I at the end of the semester, and I'm going to also say to you parents, when your child's grades are posted, that is the opportunity for them, first of all, 2 things. For them to look at their grade and say, wait a minute, I got an F in history. I don't think I deserved an F in history. At that point, they need to reach out to their instructor. So many times students, we get our grades in December, but students don't want to reach out because they don't want to use their Christmas break. But that is the time to do it. Start reaching out to your instructors early if you want to, if you feel like that's not the grade that you earned. So they can start that process. But also if a student knows, yeah, I made the D because I just really hate it, reach out to their advisor to maybe, let's say, to maybe change their schedule for the next semester. Because if you didn't pass English 1010 and your advisor advised you to take English 1020, you can't do that. So sometimes what students want to do is they want to wait till after the holiday. But meantime, a lot of the classes are closed. They get the times at 8 o'clock, which they didn't do well in the 8 o'clock before. So really encourage your students to look at their grades, give them a little bit of time to accept whether they're good or bad, because I know sometimes it's a process of accepting what may have been good or bad, but then don't let them just kind of wallow in that. Encourage your child to. I mean, I know a lot of parents are hard on their children. What did you do? This has been hard for everyone. I'm not making excuses, okay? Please understand. I've been an advisor here at the university for almost 12 and a half years. I don't like a lot of excuses, but this has been very hard on our students, especially our freshmen. They came in to their college semester, their first, semester at college and many didn't get to live in the residence hall. They didn't get to frolic in the trees like most students. They had to come to this, which has been very hard. So if you know adults that this has been hard on, just even think how hard it has been on our students. However, encourage them. Let your child know that one little mistake will not stop them. They just need to work harder and be very encouraging and tell them as advisors, we are here to help them. But what I do like for my students to do is to take responsibility. Okay, Ms. Brocks, I didn't do well. That's okay. Don't blame the teacher. Don't blame somebody else. Just go ahead and say, I didn't do well. And we're here to make it. So when people give you a lot of excuses, that's not taking ownership. Take ownership of what we've done. And we're here to help. We're not here to blame. We're not here to judge. I've seen them all. But I want your student to, as soon as they realize what has happened, if it's good or bad, if it's great, let's continue it. If it's bad, let's go ahead and adjust some things that's going to make the next semester better.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. We want to learn from what we want to learn and move forward is really, so what is your, as we kind of wrap this up, what is your biggest piece of advice, or your last biggest piece of advice that you would have for parents to help their students, or students in general, that they need to know about just prepping themselves for spring 2021?
I think using the break. I mean, right now, I think the biggest problem I've seen with everybody is time management. And that's time management in very different ways. Don't wait till the last minute. Like if there is a hole, take hold, go ahead and deal with that now. Don't register as soon as you can. Don't skip a class to do it. So if your class is at 8, don't well, I can't go to my class, I need to register. No, I'm not saying to do that. I mean, but register as soon as you can. And don't do a lot of moving in your schedule. Sometimes students are like, oh, I just have to change this, and then they lose out on another class. Be comfortable with the classes you have. If you have any questions, if you need to make changes, talk to your advisor first. It may be a reason why they gave you that class, because based on your major. So I think it's more about making a decision on the classes right now and kind of sticking with them, unless something else comes up, like, oh, over Christmas, I changed my major. So of course you need to change your classes. Not just moving and moving things around, because that could cause you to lose out on the class, but keeping that line of communication open, first of all, between the parent and their children. And parents, do remember, we cannot speak to you about your child's grade. And I know a lot of times, and people say this, you say, well, I have something on file to talk to my child. It's great. A lot of times advisors don't see that. So if you call me out of the blue, I don't know, and I'm going to be a little nervous with that. So most likely I would want, if we're going to talk, that you and your child are there together. So if you can, if that's going to make it better and you really want to do that, make sure your child is with you, and we can do a Zoom call like this, and just don't come in accusing, just let's all come in and do what is best for your student, because as the advisor, that is my goal. And I know as a parent, that is your goal. So I think right now, keeping the lines of communication open between you and your child, but also within the university, if there is a problem, and that's just not with advising, just anything. If your child is sick, if things like keeping those lines of communication open, letting people know what's going on. So that kind of helps us all work for the betterment of our students. So right now, I think making sure you're advised. If you don't even have an advising appointment set with your advisor, that needs to be something your child needs to work on now. Get advised, get cleared by their advisor, have a set of classes, but also make sure there aren't any holes. And then getting registered. And then once the student is registered, don't do a lot of changing to the schedule, because they may miss out on something. And if they have questions about certain classes, have them, if you have questions and your child can't answer it, have them around December. We're not as busy. So have your child set up a meeting with us, and we can say, oh, the reason why your child is taking this class is because of this. And that's what we're here to do. But we would need your child there, only because it's also really great because we're trying to encourage your child to advocate for themselves. So that's why they need to be in the conversation. So we want them to be a part of this as well, knowing why they're doing what they're doing. Okay.
I think that's great. And just keeping the lines of communication open, I would wholeheartedly agree. Parents can always contact our office if you've got questions or concerns or anything like that. If your student does get sick for whatever reason, or just needs a little bit of extra help, we're always here to kind of help through that process and get to the right spot, and connect with the advisor too. I think that's a great point too about December is a little bit,
Slower.
it'll be a little quieter around here
Right.
for us. And so, maybe that's an opportunity that your student can have their advising appointment. But then if you have questions or your student has follow-up questions after they've
Yes.
registered,
Mm-hmm.
have that appointment with their advisor.
I will like to jump in and say this. Some students have been asking me about FAFSA for next semester. So when you filled out your FAFSA for the 2020-21 school year, that included fall 2020, spring 2021, and summer 2021. So you don't have to fill. I know you're getting a lot of information about the FAFSA, but that's not for this school year. So that's the big thing. But I looked online about the fee payment deadline, and there isn't one posted yet, but normally fees are due the Friday by 4:30 prior to the school starting the next Monday or Tuesday. So I think we start the Tuesday after Martin Luther King's birthday. Normally fee payments are due that Friday before. So you can already have set up your payment plan. If you have that needs to be done prior to that, or your students' classes could be dropped. Sometimes they've been dropping them, but I'm just letting you know that.
Yeah, that's a good point. No payments due until right before the semester starts. So don't feel like you have to try and come up with tuition or fees or anything like that, but before this semester ends by any means. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. We really appreciate it. And I know our parents do too. So thank you all so much. And we will talk with you on our next Tiger Talk. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.